If you've ever looked at getting your cabinets professionally painted, you'll know that it's not cheap. But if you have a little time and you have a little patience, you can do it yourself and save a whole bunch of money. And I recently did that with my kitchen. I have one drawer face left to go, and I want to walk you through the supplies that you'll need, the paint that I used, and some different techniques that will ultimately let you transform your kitchen just like I did. So let's head to the store and get some supplies and talk about what you'll need. So before we start doing anything, let's talk about some of the equipment and the materials that you'll need before starting the process of painting your kitchen cabinets. I think the first and most important thing is some paint. This one specifically is Heirloom Traditions. I got the spruce color. It says that it's an all-in-one paint, and even the bottom says just clean and paint. I'm sure there's a bunch of other variations of paint that you can get. Just look for something that says, hey, you don't really need to sand or prime your cabinets before doing so. And that's what this said, so I got it, and it seemed to work out pretty good for me. Next, I have this little cup that I'm just going to use to pour a little bit of paint in, so I'm not using the gallon bucket as I'm painting things, and I can kind of hold it in my hand and move around as I go. If you don't have one of these, highly recommend picking one up. Pretty inexpensive tool, but it makes stirring up the paint so much easier. I'm sure you've seen these before, but definitely recommend picking one up. But if you don't, you can easily just use the wooden paint stick or stir that they give to you once you buy your paint. Next, grab one of these foam roller handles. I think this one's 4 inches, and then kind of like a pack or a couple of these foam rolling brushes. It's meant for smooth surfaces, and it says smooth finish, ideal for doors and cabinets. So these are the ones to get, and they worked perfectly for me. You also need a paintbrush. Doesn't really matter too much about the specifics of it, but I was just looking at all of the paintbrushes, and whatever said good for all paints is the one that I ultimately went with. How big it is, it really is going to depend on the cabinets that you're painting. But yeah, that's all personal preference there. And if you're wondering why this is duct taped on the handle, it's because my dog thought it was a chew toy. Thanks, bud. And as the paint mentioned, all you need to do is clean and then paint. So to clean it, I picked up some of this TSP substitute. It says clean before painting. Ready to use, just wipe down the surfaces, use on wood, brick, and metal. This is perfect to just get some of that grease off or anything else that might be lingering on your cabinets, just so we have a nice adhesive of the paint to the cabinet itself. So grab some of this, and then additionally grab some of these Scotch-Brite pads. It's basically like a sponge, but coarse, so it will help kind of like remove some of that, those stains that are already on your cabinets or things that you just want to get off. Next, grab some frog tape or any sort of painter's tape. This will help if you're painting the face frame, or if there's parts of your cabinet that's up against something. You can just easily set this down. You don't have to worry about cutting in, or even like the base trim that I did that with, just to separate from the round over of my flooring and the actual like toe kick of the cabinet. I used this on the floor, so I didn't have to worry about getting it too closely. If you have one, grab a mallet. For me, I had to use this thing because the drawer faces of the drawers themselves were screwed in, but then there were also some brad nails. So I just used this mallet, gave it a couple taps to remove the drawer face from the actual drawer, so then I can bring it out here to paint it. This is some other blue painter's tape, and I really just use this so I can mark off all of the drawer faces and the cabinet doors, just so I know where did I take them from, so I could put them back in the same spot when the painting was all done. And then lastly, grab a drill or a screwdriver just so you can remove some of those drawer faces away from the drawers and remove the cabinet doors from the hinges themselves. And you can also use this for the paint stirrer. So yeah, it's got a lot of uses. So just have one of these handy. Okay, that should be it. So let's go inside, let's grab the drawer and then bring it back out here and we can start the process.
So this cabinet face is a lot different than the cabinet doors and the drawers and the hardware that's associated with those. This has an interesting one just because it flips down, and this is the one that's in front of my sink that holds sponges and whatnot. So I had to get crafty. I grabbed one of these right angle bits for my drill. Thought I could just get the face out so I could leave the hardware in the actual like base frame, but I couldn't. So I had to take everything out basically, and then take that whole thing out, put it up on my counter, and get those last remaining screws with the screwdriver. And if you're doing your cabinets all at once, you're gonna have a lot of screws and a lot of cabinet hardware, so just make sure you stay organized with all those. I use this coffee cup, and It worked well. So once that was done, brought the piece of wood out to my workshop so we could paint it.
So the first step, like I mentioned, is that we need to clean everything. So find a place in your house, whether that's your kitchen, your garage, just enough space where you can take all the cabinet doors and all the drawer faces and lay them all out. If you have scrap wood, that would be great too, and you can rest all of those things on top, because we do need to let these dry before we start painting, and the extra airflow will definitely help. So to start, grab your TSP substitute, grab a plastic cup, grab your Scotch-Brite pads and some paper towels or a cloth, and let's dig into it.
So all of my cabinet drawer faces and doors had these little rubber stoppers, so I just had to take that off before I could start cleaning. So then I grabbed my TSP substitute and gave it a couple of shakes. You don't need to dilute it or anything, so I just poured it directly into a little plastic cup. It does say it needs to be plastic, so make sure you have a plastic cup for that. Next, grab the Scotch-Brite pad, dipped it in, and then I just started cleaning the thing. There was some stuff on it, so I did just grab a chisel just because it was close by, but really anything, you just want to scrape some other stuff off that is lingering, because you want this thing to be super, super clean for when it comes time to painting. So yeah, just did one side, flipped it over, and then I sat it down. You do have to wait 2 to 3 minutes after you apply it before, wiping it off with a paper towel, which you see here. So just make sure you read the directions on whatever product that you get, and then just follow it along.
So the painting technique that worked really well for me when I was doing my kitchen cabinets is I would grab my brush, grab the paint, and I would paint over the entire cabinet door or the drawer face. When that was done, everything was coated with paint from the paintbrush, I would grab my roller and then just smooth everything out. So that process worked really, really well for me, and I would highly recommend it for you as well.
So one technique that really worked for me here as I was painting is that I would put a lot of paint on the paintbrush and then just kind of work my way from the middle towards the outside. And the reason why I was doing that is because if I had a lot of paint in the middle, I could then come back with my roller and then kind of like scoop it up and make sure it's evenly applied everywhere else. So it especially works for the sides because you don't want any like runs or drippage. You know what I'm saying? Drippage.
So the paint can says that it should be dry within 1 to 2 hours. For me personally, it was somewhere in between 30 minutes and an hour. You basically just want to wait until it's dry to the touch, and then you can add your second coat. For all of my cabinets and drawers in the entire kitchen, I did 2 coats. I felt like 2 coats was just enough for it to look perfect. I still have that wood grain kind of popping through. So yeah, let's wait 30 minutes, wait till this dries. I'm gonna put another coat on top of this. Wait till that dries, flip it over, and then do 2 coats on the other side as well. Hey guys, while this dries, I just want to let you know that I've put together a free guide on my recommendation on the top 10 essential tools for beginner woodworkers. It's a PDF, it's got lots of good information about the different tool types that exist out there, my thoughts and recommendations on each one of them, and I also include some links for you to check out as well. If you want to see that list, go head down to the video description down below, click the link, enter your email address, and I'll send it to you. Also, feel free to comment on this video and just write tool guide, and I will respond to your comment and I'll send you the link there as well. So that's out there. You guys should check it out. Any feedback, questions, let me know. And now let's get back to finish painting this so we can put it back in my kitchen. So for all of the rest of the cabinet doors and the drawer faces in my kitchen, I installed the hardware, so the pulls and the knobs, after I put them back into the kitchen, because it was just easier to do it that way. For this one specifically, since it sits right in front of my kitchen sink, I'm gonna do it out here just so I don't drill too far and hit that. So I have a couple tools here. I've got my tape measure to kind of mark off the location of where I want to drill for the cabinet knobs. I have a 3/16 inch drill bit that I'll be using to drill those holes. And then I also have a chamfer bit as well. And I use this one just so the nails on the other side, or the screws on the other side, can be recessed a little bit, and it helps to give me a little bit more clearance as it's coming through the other side to attach the knob. So you could do all of this manually, but if you have a big kitchen and a lot of doors and a lot of drawer faces, I would recommend picking up what I did. And this is just a little jig to help with installing all of that cabinet hardware. You set this based on where you want the placement for it, and then you can easily move this from one cabinet door to the next, and all the placement will be locked in and it will look perfect. But because I just have one of these, I'm just going to measure it out with the tape measure and drill it out that way.
So this next clip is going to be a little bit blurry, but when you buy the drawer pulls or the knobs, they come with two different screws of different lengths. One is just your standard screw length, but then there's another one that's a bit longer. But as you can see kind of on the threads of the screws, they have places where you can cut them to kind of adjust the length of them. So that's ultimately what I needed to do, because the shorter screws were a little bit too long. So I had to go back, I needed to flip the piece of the drawer face over again, and I needed to deepen the chamfer and the hole that I drilled out on the backside, and then I grabbed my pliers and just kind of like cut the other screws a little bit shorter. And then once I did that, they fit perfect. And now it was time to get this cabinet reinstalled back in my kitchen.
And the last thing to say is, because we didn't get these professionally painted, we didn't do any sanding, we didn't do any priming, there is potential to get some nicks in the paint as you're installing everything back into your kitchen, which wasn't a big problem for me. I just grabbed my paint cup and just did some final touches, and it looks great, and I haven't had a problem since. So I hope you guys found this valuable. And if you liked the video, would appreciate if you hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're not already. Head on over to my Patreon page and check that out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.